So today we continue to talk about consumer psychology. You sell a $1,000 pot, and in order to boost sales, you are going to send a $50 spoon to the customer. That was supposed to be appreciated and greatly increased sales of the pot. But you don't care why this is happening. Is it because I send too little? You are probably sending a lot of it. You just make the user feel like you are giving away too little. In the mind of most customers, $1,000 to send $50. Only 5%, that is what you feel very heartache. She feel insincere. This is because consumers have a very important value judgment logic in the middle, which we call the bias. For example, once you saw an alarm clock in the mall. It was great, but it was a little more than $100. I was going to buy it, but a friend said to you through the store, "Hey, this alarm clock. I know that there is also activity in the near ground store. As long as $60. If you go from A to B for 10 minutes. Would you buy it?" Maybe a lot of people choose to go to $100 of thing. Sell only $60. Can be much cheaper. But once again you see a fancy watch in store C. It's perfect. But it's too expensive to be $6,600 or a friend of yours. You go through the store and say this watch. It's in store D. It's only $6,550. It's $50. From C to D. It's only 10 minutes. You can't go. At this point, many people think, that's cheap too. It's not worth $6,600 for the $600. But it's not worth it. It's an interesting situation. You are willing to spend 10 minutes at a different store to buy an alarm clock to save $40. However, you do not want to go to another store to buy a watch. Can make $50 is 10 minutes cost of time cost. But why do you think it's worth $40 for the first time? The second time, you think $50 is not worth it. That's the scale bias we just talked about. The bias is that in many cases, you should have thought about the change in the numbers themselves. But people are more inclined to think about scale or scale. In other words, people's perception of proportion is more sensitive than the perception of numbers themselves. I believe that if you bargain a $20 item to $15, it must be more rewarding than you to bargain $125 for $120. So have you found it? In fact, human beings are so irrational. That is, because of this irrational existence, we have the so-called consumer psychology. So, if you are a merchant, how do we use this ratio of consumer psychology to sell your goods? So today we are going to teach you a couple of ways. The first one is called a change. For example, in the beginning we said, you sell $1,000. You are going to give away $50. You can try to replace this with a $50 spoon for a different kind of logic. For example, you could say that you bought this $1,000 pot, and you could just add $1, and you would get this value of $50. The logic seems to have changed little from the previous one. But in the minds of consumers it has changed dramatically. In the first case, the consumer thinks the discount rate is 5%. However, in the second case, $1 for the purchase, the consumer will have a kind of superiority of the $1 money to buy $50 of goods. He will feel particularly good value. I think you'll understand why a lot of shopping malls are so enthusiastic about buying and buying. And he's actually capturing your spending psychology. And we'll teach you the second method, which is called comparison. Like if you are a computer vendor, you want to sell a 4G memory stick to a customer, and $200 of customers may or may not buy it. But if you tell him that a 4GB computer is selling $4,800 here, but an 8GB memory computer only costs $5,000, he might think, wow, this computer is twice as good. but it's only worth $200. Especially good. At this point. Although it's just 4 gigabytes of memory. A difference in size of 200 pieces. It gives the customer a completely different feel. And that's the ratio. Finally, let's summarize some of the ways in which the logic of bias is applied. In the first promotion, the lower price of the item can be used in a discounted way to make the customer feel more favorable, while the higher priced goods can lower the price to make the customer feel better. Which is to say the ratio when the price is low, when the price is high, when the price is high. Second, it makes a great deal of sense to get consumers to pay attention to small items with a high price change. Third, it is easier to sell cheap goods on a very expensive item, and sell the cheaper item separately, which makes it easier for consumers to feel valued. Maybe you are a business. Maybe you are a consumer. And you need to understand consumer psychology. That way, you as a business know how to make consumers feel more about your value. As a consumer, you'll know why companies do this.